Any more reactions on the third video? So we're all positive, isn't it? Yeah. Now, as I mentioned, so this is very interesting to do an exercise with this. The real exercise, I mean, what he really did, you don't see in here. But actually, CEOs can go through this thing. Why is it? Because they're under big stress. I think one of those elements are put up. There's panic. There's immediate frustration. I have to face my shareholders. So he's only thinking about his shareholders and not so much about his stakeholders, because his stakeholders could be, his managers or the environment or the other people around him. So he's very focused on the shareholders and he needs to please them. And under stress, people act differently, very differently. And you don't see that when you talk to them, when you test them, because it's very difficult to simulate a stressful situation. And this is actually what happens when people are really under stress. What they do is they are overusing their own strengths. So strength becomes a weakness. So it's a kind of a flipping point where people actually are starting overusing things. Where people who are very excitable, people who can be, for instance, very sociable, very ambitious, very outgoing, who go through the race quickly, and then suddenly become, a narcissist, or they become, too excitable, or too bold, and things like that. Now let's look into that before we dive into that quickly, because we made a few personality profiles together with an international bank. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to mention the name. We developed a model which was more around 3 elements, which is a fit model, focus, involvement, and trust. So actually, we sat down with their leadership board, we discussed about their results, and we said, well, the only thing we deliver results is through our employees. Because services are the same, pricing is about the same, it's all about our people. Now the thing is, the paradox of leadership is that on the one hand, people want security, they want structure. And on the other hand, they need attention. Remember, people join a company, take a job because they love the company, they join a company and they always leave the company because of their boss. Simple as that. People need attention. And that's why, for instance, words, and I really like the presentation just before this, talent management is nice, but management is about doing things right and not about the right things. And I think talent leadership or talent entrepreneurship are also nice words. People are trying to think out of the box. If we talk about talent management, we end up in planning meetings, succession planning meetings, without actually talking to the people. It's all about attention and need for appreciation. It's actually really high in Maslow's hierarchy. Now we talk then about focus, involvement, and trust as a leadership model. This is the model that we have tested within this international bank. And they have about 1,500 leaders worldwide. And I can show you later on a bit of the result. Now, what is focus? Focus has to do with, the performance leadership. So I give you focus by telling you what results I expect, by explaining the strategy of the company, the objectives of the company, by explaining to you how your results, the results that I want, the activities that I would like to see from you, are related to the strategy of the company, the activities of the company, and the results of the company. So why am I doing this? What is my job? What is my focus? Why am I actually here? So that's the kind of things you want to know. Involvement is much more about commitment of people. It makes people move. It's about the psychological contract. I like being here. I feel inspired. I am valued. I make a difference. People have to feel they make a difference. So looking at bank leaders from this perspective, whether they do this kind of things, is quite interesting. I can tell you, this is quite new to them as well. Trust is much more about your personal leadership. So trust, whether you can build trust. Trust is a very, very interesting subject. There's some nice books, the latest one by actually Stephen Covey, the late Stephen Covey. Trust is a very interesting concept. It is about the trust I have in the company, integrity of the rules, whether the company has high integrity, whether my manager has high integrity, whether my manager actually does exactly do what he tells me that he will do. Integrity is very, very important. If people don't trust the company or a manager anymore, they will simply leave. And you don't notice as a leader or a manager. Trust is also the binding element. It makes the team spirit. It's the reason why people work together. You trust your colleagues, you trust your management, you trust your company. And then we go to the classical ones, where you have performance management, personal leadership, people management. I'll get back to this model in a second. If you then go back to the first CEO, now what is in terms of the Hogan personality inventory, Big 5 personality. Personality is what I would like to do, ideally, in an ideal world. This is what I am, this is what I would like to do. This is my potential. It doesn't say he's really doing it. Then you need to send the person to an assessment center or assess him through a 360 whatsoever. But it's like what he likes to do. Very quickly, in the Hogan, it's described 7 elements. This guy, first video, remember the first video? Frustration, panic, pressure, judgment, disengagement, urgency, maturity, hypocrisy. This is actually a derailer. This is this guy doing too much of his strength. I'll show you in a second. The prudence means that he's very goal-oriented, that he's really conscientious, that he wants to plan things ahead, that he's really managerial. The high adjustment means that he's collected. He's very self-controlled, he's very self-confident. And ambition means I want to get things done. I'm better than all the others anyway, right? You're my manager, but I'm better than you anyway. That kind of attitude. So that becomes very bold, very wrong, if somebody's under stress. What actually happens, the kind of dynamics you see here, top-down style, very goal-oriented. I know it all, I'm the best. And then he derails, because there's too much pressure from his shareholders and everything. And he doesn't think about his managers and his co-workers anymore. So what he's doing, he's not involving them in decision making. He's already made his decisions. You can come up with anything, but he made his decisions already. He's not actually involving you. The next step is the manager say, okay, you do it. You're correcting me all the time anyway. You're correcting me, thank you. You're correcting me all the time anyway. So this is very dangerous, because if managers think of their boss like this, or if your co-workers think of you like this, then they won't work anymore. You can delegate as hell, but they don't work anymore, because you do it all the time yourself anyway. So that you will actually not review, but you will rewrite their work. If they write something for you, you will rewrite it. Instead of reviewing, instead of just stimulating, you do it right the next time. Failure is not, you learn from failure. And what happens is then results of the business are going down. And as a result, the top-down style gets worse. So this is where actually a good guy who's gone through the ranks, who's very visible, who's very conscientious, very goal-oriented, very competitive, everybody knows it, very excited, very outgoing, becomes a derailer because he's overusing his strength. And that's what this type of stress does to people. And you have to manage that, you need to coach that, you need to be upfront. Second guy, right? What's that? Insecure, unconvinced, and lack of direction. That's what you felt here in the room when you listened to him. If you look at quickly at his HPI scores on Big 5, you can see high interpersonal sensitivity. Any idea what it is, high interpersonal sensitivity? I like you, I cherish you, I want to know everything about you, I understand you, right? But also, don't criticize me, right? Because I don't like if you criticize me. That's the kind of thing. Please give me applause, that kind of thing. That's the highest interpersonal sensitivity. Still ambitious, very social, outgoing, wants to be with others, in teams, with people, inquisitive, but it's this interpersonal sensitivity which is a bit of a problem to the guy. He wants to please and he wants to be pleased. Which is very nice, because he will bring the right things on the right time to the right people. He will, bring consensus, he will talk with everyone, he will listen to everyone, he will make a decision. He's a very good guy to work for. He will review instead of rewrite. But what happens in the stressful situation, his priority to be pleased and to please, right, is there. And he wants to strive for consensus. And sometimes you can't always have consensus, because decisions have to be made, unpopular decisions. What also happens in those companies, there's a lack of debate, lack of new ideas. There's a status quo. People don't feel challenged anymore, because he's not confronting with you. You got a good idea, but in order to get this idea going, you want to confront your manager with this idea. And he's not open to that anymore, because he doesn't like debate and confrontation. Right? So bold ideas, new ideas about how to approach a reorganization is actually dying away. So there's a lack of innovation, lack of ideas. And this actually is strength that becomes a weakness, feeling of insecurity and lack of trust. And I can tell you this is what happens. There's some nice research in it. In a lot of companies, But there's some, again, American research on this kind of thing. They said that if a company does very well, only 10% of the important decisions why a company is growing is actually, you can allocate those decisions to the CEO. Whether if a company goes down the drain, it's 100% the CEO, because he makes the decisions. And it's this kind of behaviors that's very, very dangerous. So if you look at personality, have a look how people act under stress. Going back to the International Bank, we assessed 1,277 leaders, which was quite a big job. There was a lot in Asia, to be honest. There were a lot of leaders in Asia in this company. There's a lot of direct reports, so almost more than 4,500 people were involved in the report, not only through 360, but also through questionnaires on trust, on involvement, and things like that. And we did the assessment, the investment was done at the beginning of a leadership program. And that had to do with metrics as well, because they didn't want to have the leaders in where they think they belong in the leadership program. This is very expensive. Even though performance ratings were okay, it's still a problem. Personality questionnaires, there was a big 5 involved. Work style questionnaire, 360 feedback inventory. So on leadership competencies, but also on involvement, let's say on the focus, involvement and trust elements. And you could rank personal qualities. There were open questions as well, very helpful in the feedback. What we then did, we did a 3-hour session per leader, and that was really quality time for them, because they really could spend 3 hours on themselves, which for some of them were quite narcissistic. It was quite funny to say that actually they could spend 3 hours on themselves, but it helps people if they could talk 3 hours about themselves. Also interesting, if you look at performance leadership, but then from the perspective of not only giving feedback and direction, but also to be a bit blunt, to hold to account, right? Now, I ask you to do this. These are your targets, you deliver. That bluntness, right? There was actually a negative relationship between that and managerial trust. So if managers start overdoing that, they want performance management, they want clear results, so they want you as a manager to tell me what are my results you expect, what activities do you expect, but don't overdo it. So it's really a fragile thing, right? If you go across that line, then there's a negative relationship with managerial trust. If managerial trust is gone, it means politics, right? Nobody's honest anymore. That's very dangerous. People will go. You can have lovely talent management programs, they will go anyway. You're still managing on the background with your planning and your succession, and somebody, you put someone up, and then you say, where is he? Oh, he's gone. That can happen, right? So that happens a lot. People leave because of the boss, not because of the company. The other relation, performance leadership and organizational trust. Discussions and questions, we just keep that to the next session. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. And